Hi everyone, happy First Chapter Friday. I have a treat again. It is The Insiders, and it's by Mark Oshiro. It's a book about a boy who has moved from the city into a very rural place that is quite different, and it's very difficult to fit in. In fact, there's a picture right here that is this guy right there. That is probably representing our main character. I'll tell you what I most like about the book after I give you a first chapter, okay? Chapter 1. Hector Munoz glittered. Literally, his mammy glanced over at him from the driver's seat and smiled. "You're going all out, aren't you?" she said. "I have to," he said, smoothing out the wrinkles on his black button-down. "First day and all, gotta let 'em know what they're in for." She turned the car onto the wide stretch of Madison Avenue. The streets were so much bigger here than anything he was used to back at home in San Francisco. Well, not home anymore. It hadn't been long since his family moved to Orangevale, which was definitely not San Francisco. He fell silent as his mother drove him to school. He wasn't going to tell her how fast his heart was beating, or that he missed his friends, that he missed being able to walk through the Mission to school in the morning, that he missed the corner market off Valencia, where the man behind the counter always joked about Hector being too young for coffee. So he fiddled with the tiny stuffed Evie on his backpack. He zoned out while staring at all the strip malls and the gas stations and drive-through restaurants as they passed by. He flicked the tiny bells that he had sewn into the top strap of his bag. "You'll be fine, mi hijo," said his mammy as they slowed behind the traffic. When he glanced up at her, her eyebrows were raised in concern. "You just be your wonderful self and it'll be okay." "You think so?" "Depends on if your new classmates have any taste," she said in a faux serious tone. "You might be just too cool for them." He laughed. "Oh, come on, Mammy. You think that's true?" She grunted. "Honey, the buttons on your shirt match the buttons on your shoes." "True." "And yesterday morning we saw a man wearing a cargo vest at the store?" He nodded. "Also true. I did not know a person could need so many pockets." Mammy turned off Madison toward the school. "What do you think he keeps in them?" "Duh, Mammy, his hopes and dreams." They both laughed at that, and Hector was thankful he could joke as often as he did with Mammy. He relied on humor a lot because it just made everything fun. He looked more like his pappy than his Mammy. She was a lighter brown, and her nose came to a point, and her face was framed with long black hair. Hector had the black curls and the dark brown skin, and the wide nose of his pappy. But he got his jokes from Mammy, definitely. He hoped that his humor would get him through his day, because it loomed off to the right and at the end of the block, Orangevale Middle School. It was a single story, sprawling. The green grass of the sports field stretched so far back that Hector couldn't even see the fence on the other side of the campus. Did it go on forever? Probably. Everything seemed to in this town. Long streets, an endless horizon, so much space. There were no buildings leaning up against one another, no growing and diving hills with homes that seemed like they were riding the waves of the earth. Other kids were streaming up the steps into the school, and he took a deep breath. "I can do this," he said, almost to himself. But his mammy heard him. "I know you can," she said, and then she reached over and grabbed his hand. "You're amazing, mijo. You're going to make so many friends, and everyone is going to love you." "They better," he said, grinning. "I put on my best outfit for them." "Go impress 'em," she said, and kissed him on the forehead. "Be the Hector I know and love." "It's a new stage," he said, "and this is opening night." "That's a neat way to think of it," said Mammy. "You gonna join the drama club today?" "If I can find it," he said, as he opened the car door and jumped out. "Peppy is picking me up, right?" She nodded, and Hector blew her a kiss. He shut the door and she drove off. And then it was time. Hector Munoz stood at the bottom step, kids streaming around him into the wide open double doors. So, this was his new school. It felt even stranger that his first day here was the beginning of October, too. No matter, he had to make a good impression. So he joined the flow, and moments later he was inside his new school. The halls were bright, the tile shiny, and the echoes of voices and scuffling shoes bounced around him. The energy felt different. It wasn't as loud here as his last school. No one was reciting a monologue in the hallways, or singing, or practicing a synchronized dance routine. There weren't any kids running with a giant canvas hoisted on their back. As he counted 6 kids wearing green cargo shorts, he deeply missed Tim and Sophia, his best friends back in the mission. "I'll have to text them," he thought, and he pulled out his phone. "No phones in the halls!" The voice rang loud and clear, just off to Hector's left, and he froze in place, long enough for someone to bump into his backpack. "Out of the way," the girl whispered, and she looked over Hector from head to toe. Then she shook her head, her blonde curls bouncing back and forth. "Seriously," he thought, "did she just judge my outfit?" But he had no time to say anything. A woman stood tall in front of Hector, her arms crossed in front of her, and she wore a head-to-toe gray outfit, gray skirt, gray blazer over a gray shirt, and a gray headcloth headband pulling her brown-black hair back, with impeccably shiny gym sneakers on her feet. Everything was perfectly matched. "Young man, did you hear what I said?" Hector did, but he was just still lost in all that gray. There was so much of it. Did she dress this way every day? He kind of respected that. "Sorry," he said, putting his phone back in his pocket. "I'm new here." She raised a high brow on her angular face, which only seemed to stretch it out longer. "New?" she said. "Did you already go through registration?" "Last week," he said. "Mammy brought me into—" "Because there is an order to things here at Orangevale Middle School," she said, cutting him off. "You can't just do as you please, young man." Okay," he frowned. "I wasn't trying to." "Did you read our handbook on student conduct?" Seemingly out of nowhere, she produced a pale pamphlet and held it out. "Perhaps you need a refresher." He shook his head. "No, I think I'm fine, Miss Heath, head of campus security," she said, raising her chin a little higher. "And what is your name?" There was a notepad in her hand. Where did that come from, he wondered. Where did that pamphlet go? She scribbled something down. She muttered. "Well, off to homeroom. You do know where that is, right?" "What did you write?" "Mr. Munoz, that is none of your business," she intoned, her voice dropping in pitch. "Please continue to class, and remember, here at Orangevale Middle School, we follow the rules." And then she turned and walked off down the hallway, her gym shoes squawking loudly on the tile. Well, that was odd, he thought. Why had she singled him out? Sure, he was new. Still, it wasn't the best way to start his first day. A bell rang out. It was flat, an even tone, low, boring. Miss Heath was still walking away, so he peeked at his phone. His homeroom class started in 5, and after that he would meet all his new teachers. all his new classmates. Maybe there'd be a kid obsessed with musicals, or even someone who just liked drama. At this point, he'd take someone who just visited a thrift shop once in a while. He just had to find his people, right? Hector stepped into his noisy homeroom class, believing that it could only get better. As you can imagine, it doesn't get better, at least not for a long time. So, what I liked about this book, I told you I was going to tell you, is that this young man is unique and he has a family that appreciates his uniqueness. He has old friends that appreciate it, and he really likes himself. Just because he doesn't do everything or think the ways that other people around him think doesn't mean that he changes himself to adapt. So those are the things I really like about him. There are characters that are in this story who are from different parts of society. There are kids who have different ethnicities, and there are queer students in the book. The author, there's a nice picture of him here, Mark Oshiro. He himself identifies as, they identify as queer, and the story is just an excellent blend of the different topics that are quite hot right now in a very normal setting of middle school. And I appreciate that this book can represent a number of our students. So I hope you give it a go, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you for watching and listening.